All right, troops. Let's advance here with the Stalingrad Pocket, 2nd edition. Just finished up the 29 to 30 November turn. And I'm going to tell you what, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 turns. And the weather has been clear, which benefits the German air power, on 5 of the 6 turns. We had fog on 1. And I think on the die roll for the fog turn, I think they both ended up with 4 air power. Now, funny thing is, this time they each ended up with 2 air power, because the Germans get a +1, they rolled a 1, and the Soviets don't get any pluses, and they roll a 2. So they pretty much, like I say, I'm rolling dice for using air power, so they pretty much counted themselves. Air power is kind of tough to use in this game when you're playing solo, because you drop 1 as a defender, then you match it with the attacker, and some of the odds just aren't grand enough anyhow. The Soviets have the luxury of being able to get more units into an attack than the Germans can, but they're just not very powerful. All right, so anyhow, let's go over here and cover this side of the battlefield here. So, still got that trapped unit sitting way over yonder here, over here. Trapped Germany. And now he's out of supply. So, and then down here, just below the river, the Cheer River, which we got a game, an SCS game that is about that. Was it the 11th Panzer on the Cheers, or 16th Panzer on the Cheers, something like that? Yeah, we'll eventually get around to playing that one too. So the Soviets bum rushed across. They took that victory location right here. And then they ran down here, tried to overrun the German stack using a dam. And I think they did. I think they got a no result. And then the combat eventually came up and they tried to attack. And I think they got a no result again, or they lost a step. I can't remember. But they didn't go nowhere. And then of course, when the Germans came in, the 7th, I want to call them Fallschirmjägers, but they're not. I guess the Luftwaffe troops turned into infantry. So they came up, and now they'll support them there. They're not very strong either, so. And I'm assuming that's because they're probably not as efficient as regular German infantry. And then we move up the river here, and of course the Russians, I had a defense line set in here for the Germans, and they just busted across the river. And, I had a lot of just artillery stacks that were defending because it just wasn't enough combat power to be in there. This guy here had been sitting in this village, and he stood his ground, but all the stuff that was in here and along here got shattered and either had to get out or got destroyed. So, but the cool thing was there was a 3 stack of First Guards armor that, or was it now? Yeah, First Guards armor that broke across this river here, took out 2 artillery pieces, but then at the end of the turn, they were out of supply because their headquarters from back here could not reach them. So, we bombarded the hell out of them. They were already out of supply, so then we DG'd them and actually rolled like an 11 with the artillery, and they lost a step, and they were only 1-step units. So there was only 2 left, and they were out of supply and DG'd. So I attacked with these 2 units and rolled a freaking 12. And, of course, it was like a 7-to-1 odd because they were DG'd and out of supply. And their defenses were only 2, so you figured that was reduced from the out of supply down to 1, and then the DG down to a half. So, the odds were massive. It was above 7-to-1, but so that entire stack is gone. So there's a plus for the Germans there. But the point is they're still across. Now, the Germans do have some decent infantry units here that if I can set something up and stall them, if I get just a few more units over there, that might be worth, let me pull this back a little bit, that might be worth trying to hold their ground right there. And as they're starting to pull back along the front, the line starts to tighten up, makes it a little tougher on the Russians. These 2 guys these units here destroyed some stuff in here. Was able to get the Germans out here, except for this one guy here. Now he's out of supply. He can't reach his headquarters, or a headquarters for that matter. Stalingrad, well, guess what? The Soviets own it. Sorry. And I still think that was the better decision because they were going to get cut off. And the fact that I was able to pull all those units out of Stalingrad, it's given me some strength in here now. So I got a lot of artillery in here. The Russians did get all those Katyusha rockets back. So they've moved back into their fronts, and I'm sure they'll flip and be used on the next turn. But I think I want to think through that a little deeper on this next turn because I need to break out somewhere. And I still think that the best place is going to be over here to the right. The far right, I don't know about messing around with this. The Germans got 2 more armor units that came up, or 2 mechanized units that came up to help. That's a very, very good stack of Russian mechanized. Great defense strengths and good offensive numbers. So if I can keep them from being DG'd all the time. The Germans have held on about as long as they can in here. So I've got to get troops over here because this is nothing but... Now this is kind of cool. So this was all artillery and 1 combat unit. We artied that armor with as much as I could get on it and destroyed a step and DG'd it. And then we attacked with the little lowly infantry that was in there. It was like a 2-to-1 it ended up being because of this. Oh yeah, I got to put the DG back on that guy. It was like 2-to-1 or something. Or 1-to-1, but rolled really well and stuttered that unit right there. So, but he's still, he'll be DG'd, so he won't do much. But these guys are going to be able to push forward now. So they've been hanging on in these hills. But I got a feeling, I think they took a loss in the Soviet attack. One of the units in here got destroyed. So, but I don't have much over here for the Germans. So I'm afraid that unless something massive comes in over here off of one of these entry hexes on this side of the map, I'm not really sure what to do yet over here. Because if they break out here, these guys, the armor over here has got to come back. So, and I'm telling you what, on that turn, the Soviets did a ton of overrun. I mean, I must have had 6 overrun attacks, 5 or 6. All right, well, you can see all the masses are starting to come through Stalingrad. And a lot of these are the big dog troops. So once they get down here to the fight, this right here along that river might not be the place for them to fight. I might need to either shift this way or shift this way. And right now, this is looking like the best option for the Soviets. And then swing down and around. All right, current status. Look at all those dead Axis forces, and actually there's somewhat of a balance between the German and the Romanians, all right, or Italians or whoever they might be over there. And there's your Soviet losses. It's tough losing those armor units for the Soviets, especially look at that big one right there. And then those 2 stacks of guards armor. All right, so the overall picture, let's back off, take a look at it. You can see that the Soviets are moving in from the left side over here, which I can never find the stinking directional arrows or the compasses on this thing, from the northwest. They're still pushing. They are across the river. The next turn, I think their motions or their attacks will determine whether or not this has to collapse, because if that breaks right there, they've got to come out. The 2 victory point, if you see a letter, that means they've been taken by the Soviets. All right. If you see one with a hole, that means the Germans still own it. So right now, the Germans have 9 victory points, which if you go to the chart for right now, it's a minor Soviet victory. So, I mean, I'm guessing they're probably going to at least lose 1 more. Maybe 2. I don't know. It'd be nice if they only lose 1, or it should be nice if they don't lose any. But I think a lot of that pressure that's going to come out of this mess up here, that now that the Germans have had to pull back, you figure they're swinging in over here, and they're not really hurt yet, and now all this stuff is freed up. So there's going to be a lot of pressure over here. So, I mean, if they move in and take this, like I say, it's going to break that defense over there, and they could take that. If they get across that river, they'll swing over here and take this. So, I mean, right now it could still go either way. I would think that momentum-wise, the Soviets have it. The Russians have the momentum. They still have the numbers as far as offensive numbers. Although they got a lot of units that have 0 attack strength, which I thought was interesting. But I think right here in the center, so, focus may need to shift from one of these flanks into the center, at least as far as moving them and deciding where I want to strike with what's building in here. And, of course, trying to keep them in supply. So these damage assist markers or whatever, these things have been great. Germans only have 2. Soviets have like 6. And then air hasn't been a real effect. I mean, I don't know, 1 out of every 2 or 3 times they get used, you might get a column shift out of it. Because usually they rolling the dice for me, if it's odd, they get 1. If it's even, they don't. A lot of times they both roll odd. They end up matching each other, and it just wipes each other across. Like I say, it's too hard to use that stuff playing against yourself because you just, you're only rolling 1 6-sided dice. So unless the Soviets roll like a 1 and the Germans roll a 6 with a +1 and get 7 of them, that's not happened. Usually they're within 1 of each other, 2 at the most. All right, so we've progressed. Like I say, we're getting ready to jump into, it looks like December. And the skies have been clear, so there's no snow on the ground, which is odd. Well, yeah, because you can see the weather chart there. It says heavy snow and light snow. So we've had nothing but clear, and we had a foggy day. All right, so let's get this thing up. Give me your comments on this. Let me know what you think of how this is working, and we'll get after the next turn. All right, talk to y'all shortly.